All right, so are you ready to unpack this one?
Oh, yeah. I've been looking forward to this one.
I know a lot of you have requested this deep dive into one of the most enduring mysteries, I think, in American history,
Absolutely.
the Sodder children case.
Yeah.
So let's dive deep, right?
Let's do it.
It all starts on Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Fayetteville, West Virginia.
Okay.
So picture this, a close-knit town nestled in the Appalachians,
Right.
a hardworking Italian immigrant family, the Sodders, getting ready for the holidays,
The holiday.
and then tragedy.
You know what strikes me is how this case from the very beginning blends the ordinary with the utterly bizarre.
Right.
You have this idyllic image of Christmas Eve shattered by a fire, but then the details start to unravel, and it becomes
no.
clear that something doesn't quite add up.
Absolutely. 5 of the 10 Sodder children vanish after that fire, and they're never found. We're going to try to unpack this.
Wow.
We're going to examine a Smithsonian Magazine article,
Okay.
a pathologist's report, first-hand accounts, all trying to answer the question, did those children perish in the fire, or was something more sinister at play?
And the backdrop of Fayetteville itself plays a role, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Small towns have a way of magnifying events, turning whispers into full-blown theories.
Oh, yeah.
That atmosphere, combined with the conflicting evidence in this case, makes this case so compelling.
Right. Those small-town dynamics can make things even more complex. So the night of the fire, it's almost midnight when the Sodder's phone rings.
Oh, wow.
A woman's voice asks for someone they don't know, then hangs up. Their mother, Jenny, notices the lights are on downstairs, curtains open, front door unlocked. It's all a bit unsettling.
If we look at this from an investigative standpoint, those details, while seemingly insignificant on their own, begin to form a pattern.
Yeah.
Could they be indicators of something planned? Or are we simply connecting dots that aren't really there?
It's definitely eerie. Then the fire breaks out. The father, George, makes desperate attempts to rescue his children. But everything seems to work against him. A ladder that's always kept in the same spot is missing. His trucks won't start. The rain barrel is frozen solid. It's almost like every escape route is deliberately blocked.
Adding to the chaos, the fire department's response was delayed due to a convoluted phone tree system they used at the time.
Oh, gosh.
By the time they arrived, the house was engulfed. But here's the first major anomaly that throws the whole tragic accident theory into question.
Okay.
Despite a thorough search of the ashes, no remains of the 5 missing children are ever found.
And that right there is what fuels so much of the speculation around this case. If they died in the fire, where are their remains? It doesn't seem possible for a fire of that intensity to completely obliterate 5 bodies.
Which leads us to question.
What?
Were the authorities too quick to accept the explanation of faulty wiring? What about the peculiar events leading up to the fire? There was the stranger who pointed out the Sodder's fuse boxes, predicting their house would go up in smoke. And there was the insurance salesman who threatened George due to his outspoken criticism of Mussolini.
For those unfamiliar with the historical context, Mussolini was the fascist dictator of Italy during World War II. George Sodder, being an Italian immigrant, was vocal in his opposition to fascism, which may have made him some enemies.
Exactly. And these incidents, combined with the man spotted watching the Sodder children from his car in the weeks leading up to the fire, cast a shadow of suspicion over the entire event. Could these have been mere coincidences, or are they early signs of something more deliberate and malicious?
Yeah, it's enough to make you wonder. Then there's Jenny's bone-burning experiment. Distraught over the lack of her children's remains, she burns animal bones in her own backyard and finds a pile of charred remains every time.
And this simple experiment raises a critical question about the fire's intensity. Forensic anthropologists often use the presence or absence of bone fragments to determine the temperature and duration of a fire. Jenny's experiment, while not scientifically controlled, certainly suggests that a normal house fire wouldn't completely incinerate human bones.
Right, and we have to consider the information she got from a crematorium worker who told her a much hotter fire, burning for hours, would be needed to completely destroy a body.
Right.
It just doesn't add up with the timeline and intensity of the Sodder house fire.
And then there's the detail about the telephone lines. They were reportedly cut, not burned, further undermining the idea of an accidental electrical fire.
Gosh.
It points to a possible deliberate act to disrupt communication, perhaps to delay the fire department's response.
So we have a fire with questionable origins, missing children, and evidence that seems to contradict the official explanation. Then we add in the eyewitness accounts. Several people came forward claiming they saw the missing children after the fire.
That's where the narrative takes a fascinating turn. A waitress at a tourist stop about 50 miles from Fayetteville claims she served breakfast to the children a few days after the fire. Another woman recalls seeing them at a Charleston hotel, accompanied by adults who appeared to be of Italian descent.
These sightings, though scattered and sometimes contradictory, are intriguing. They offer glimmers of hope that maybe, just maybe, the children weren't in the house when the fire started.
And it makes you wonder if they were taken, who was behind it, and why.
Right.
This leads us to the involvement of the FBI, which further complicates the story. J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI at the time, initially declined to investigate, stating it was a local matter. Later, they offered assistance, but only under specific conditions that local authorities rejected.
So, enter private investigator C.C. Tinsley. The Sodders hired him to look into the case. He dug deep, interviewing witnesses, examining evidence, and uncovering some pretty disturbing information.
Tinsley's investigation takes an unexpected turn.
Yeah, what does he find that throws another wrench into the official story?
Well, he uncovers a link between the insurance salesman who had threatened George Sodder
Right.
and the coroner's jury that ruled the fire accidental.
Oh, wow.
The salesman was a member of that jury, which raises serious questions about a potential conflict of interest.
Talk about a bombshell. And then there's the strange incident with the fire chief.
Oh my gosh.
He initially claimed no remains were found in the ashes, but later confided in a minister that he had found a heart and buried it. They excavated the site, and guess what? It turned out to be beef liver, completely untouched by fire.
It's a truly bizarre detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some speculate the fire chief planted the liver hoping to appease the Sodders and put an end to the relentless questioning. Others believe he genuinely mistook it for a human heart, highlighting the chaotic and potentially compromised nature of the initial investigation. It certainly adds another layer of mystery to the whole thing, doesn't it? I mean, why would the fire chief do that? It just makes you question everything else about the official investigation.
It's baffling, but through it all, the Sodders never wavered in their belief that their children were still alive. They refused to accept the official explanation and took matters into their own hands. In 1949, they decided to excavate the site where their house once stood.
They brought in a pathologist from Washington, D.C. to oversee the dig, hoping to find something, anything, that could shed light on what happened to their children. And what they unearthed added another twist to this already tangled tale.
Yeah, they found a few fragments of vertebrae, which at first seemed like a glimmer of hope. The Sodders sent the bones to the Smithsonian Institution, one of the most respected scientific institutions in the world, for analysis. They thought maybe, finally, they'd have some answers.
And the results of that analysis were both shocking and perplexing. The Smithsonian's report concluded that the bones did not belong to any of the missing Sodder children. They determined the bones belonged to an older individual and crucially showed no signs of fire damage. They believed they were likely mixed in with the dirt that George Sodder used to fill the basement after the fire.
So not only were the children's remains not found, but this new discovery added another layer of confusion to the whole thing. How could bones that weren't exposed to the fire end up mixed in with the debris? What did the authorities have to say about all of this?
2 hearings were held at the Capitol in Charleston, but ultimately the governor and state police superintendent declared the case hopeless and officially closed the investigation. You can only imagine the frustration the Sodders must have felt. Their search for answers was met with dismissal and indifference.
It's heartbreaking, but even faced with official roadblocks and dwindling hope, the Sodders refused to give up. They erected that billboard you mentioned earlier, the one along Route 16 with the faces of their missing children. It became a haunting reminder of the unsolved mystery. They continued to offer rewards, distribute flyers, and chase down every lead, determined to find their children.
It speaks volumes about their strength and resilience as a family. Think about it. In the face of such a devastating loss, most people would eventually succumb to the grief and uncertainty. The Sodders did the opposite. They channeled their grief into action, into a relentless pursuit of the truth.
Their dedication is truly inspiring, and amongst all the leads and tips they received over the years, one stands out as particularly eerie. In 1968, over 20 years after the fire, they received a mysterious photo and letter in the mail.
Ah, yes. This is where the story takes another truly bizarre turn. The photo was of a young man who bore a striking resemblance to Louis, one of the missing Sodder children. On the back of the photo, a handwritten note simply read, "Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie. Ella Boys, A90132 or 35.
It's a cryptic message that only deepened the mystery surrounding their disappearance. The Sodders, clinging to this sliver of hope, hired a private investigator to track down the sender based on the Kentucky postmark on the envelope.
And sadly, that investigator vanished, leaving no trace. It's like the case itself is cursed, swallowing up anyone who dares to get too close to the truth. The Sodders were once again left with more questions than answers.
It's almost like something out of a movie script, isn't it? All those years of searching, and then this photo arrives offering a glimmer of hope, only to be met with another dead end.
It's truly a roller coaster ride of emotions. And this case has sparked countless theories over the years, hasn't it? Everything from organized crime involvement to an elaborate kidnapping scheme.
Right. Some believe the mafia might have targeted George Sodder, maybe for refusing to join their ranks or because of his outspoken criticism of Mussolini. Given his success in the trucking business and his vocal political stances, it's not entirely implausible.
That's right. And his criticism of Mussolini wouldn't have gone unnoticed within the Italian-American community. Remember, this was post-World War II, a time when tensions were still high and loyalties were questioned. It's not far-fetched to think that someone might have held a grudge.
Then there's the kidnapping theory. Could someone have abducted the children, perhaps someone they knew, and then staged the fire as a cover-up? The unlocked door, the strange phone call, the missing ladder. All those seemingly small details could point to a planned abduction.
And the eyewitness accounts of the children being seen with adults of Italian descent after the fire would seem to support that theory. But if they were kidnapped, why? And where were they taken? And why haven't they come forward in all these years?
It's a tangled web of questions with no easy answers. And then, of course, there's the theory that the children might have chosen to disappear, possibly to protect their family from some unknown danger.
That's an interesting angle. Perhaps they were convinced to run away, believing it was the only way to keep their loved ones safe from some perceived threat. But again, it raises the question, if they were alive all these years, why wouldn't they have contacted their parents? Wouldn't they want to reassure them that they were okay?
Unless they were being held against their will or were somehow prevented from reaching out. Or maybe they created new lives for themselves and were afraid to resurface, fearing the consequences. It's all speculation, but the possibilities are both intriguing and heartbreaking.
What's remarkable is that even though the case was officially closed, the search for answers never truly ended. For the Sodder family, it became a lifelong quest.
And this brings us to Sylvia, the youngest Sodder child. She was only 2 years old when the fire happened, but she grew up surrounded by this mystery.
Sylvie's story is particularly compelling because she has vivid memories of that terrifying night. She remembers the fire, the chaos, the frantic search for her siblings. She's never given up hope that they are still alive somewhere out there.
To grow up with that constant question mark hanging over your family, the unanswered questions, the whispers, and speculation, it must have been incredibly difficult.
She spent her life piecing together fragments of information, poring over old documents, chasing down leads, keeping the memory of her siblings alive. And in recent years, she's become involved in online communities dedicated to the Sodder children mystery, hoping to finally uncover the truth.
It's a testament to the enduring power of family bonds and the relentless pursuit of justice, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Sylvia's dedication to uncovering the truth is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It speaks volumes about the impact this tragedy has had on her life. It really makes you think about the power of hope and perseverance, doesn't it?
It does.
The Sodder children case is a tragic reminder that sometimes even the most basic questions, what happened, where did they go, can remain unanswered for decades.
And it challenges us to confront the limits of what we can know and accept that some mysteries may never be fully solved. We've examined so many pieces of this puzzle. The fire itself, the missing children, the conflicting evidence, the strange events beforehand, the eyewitness accounts, and the official investigation that seems to have more holes than answers.
Yeah, it's like every time you think you're getting close to some kind of resolution, another layer of complexity is revealed. If you were trying to piece this together, where would you even start?
Well, you have to consider the timeline, the various players involved, and the potential motives. Were the children victims of a tragic accident? Or was the fire deliberately set as part of a larger scheme? Was there a cover-up orchestrated to protect someone powerful? Or was it simply a botched investigation compounded by small-town dynamics and limited resources?
And what about the Sodders themselves? They remained steadfast in their belief that their children were alive even when everyone else seemed to give up hope. Did they cling to that belief as a way to cope with the unimaginable loss? Or did they genuinely sense that something more was at play?
It's impossible to know for sure. But their dedication to finding their children is a testament to the depth of their love and the power of their hope. They never stopped searching, never stopped believing. They kept their children's memory alive through the billboard, the flyers, the rewards, the countless interviews. They never let the world forget.
It's a story that stays with you, doesn't it?
It does.
The unanswered questions, the lingering doubts, the possibility that 5 children could simply vanish without a trace. It makes you question everything you think you know about the world.
It reminds us that truth can be elusive, that even in a world with advanced technology and forensic science, some mysteries defy explanation. And it forces us to grapple with the uncomfortable reality that sometimes, despite our best efforts, we may never know the full story.
We can speculate, we can analyze, we can connect the dots as best we can, but in the end, the Sodder children's fate remains a mystery. What resonates with you most in this story? Is it the sheer strangeness of the fire and the missing remains? Is it the possibility of foul play and a potential cover-up? Or is it the unwavering determination of the Sodder family, their refusal to give up hope even when faced with overwhelming odds?
Mhm. The Sodder children's case is a reminder that the search for truth is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And sometimes the journey itself is just as important as the answers we seek. It's a story that continues to fascinate and haunt us, a testament to the enduring power of family, the relentless pursuit of justice, and the enduring mystery of the unknown.
So for you listening, what stands out to you as the most compelling aspect of this case? Is there a piece of evidence that you find particularly intriguing or a theory that you find more plausible than others? And how do you think this story reflects on the nature of truth and the limits of our understanding?
Even today, the Sodder children case continues to generate discussion and debate in online forums and among those who are drawn to unsolved mysteries. New theories emerge, old evidence is re-examined, and the search for answers continues. Perhaps someday new information will come to light, shedding light on what truly happened that fateful Christmas Eve.
Until then, the Sodder children's story remains a haunting reminder that some questions may never be answered, some wounds may never fully heal, and some mysteries may forever remain unsolved.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one.